Welcome in. Welcome in. It's so good to see everybody. Thank you all so much for joining me this Saturday. This is going to be a fun class. We're not necessarily doing a project. Well, I say necessarily. We're not at all doing a project, actually. But we are going to be doing a lot of talking. And I feel like this class has got some really good information in it for those of you who maybe you are building your new business. Or maybe you are just getting started with a hobby, right? So I don't want anybody to, don't misread the title of this class because it does say Jewelry Business Essentials, but I do think that this is going to be an informative class that's going to definitely have information in it, little nuggets of wisdom for everybody who is into jewelry making, whether you are a beginner, whether you are a professional, or whether, you're just considering it as a hobby. So that being said, I do want to kind of preface this with a little, just a kind of a disclaimer, I guess you would say. I'm talking about jewelry business essentials as far as just kind of an overall encompassing things that you're going to want to have, the tools, the findings, the wire and the stringing, and then some of the extras. But I'm not necessarily going to be focusing on a certain type of jewelry making. So in other words, this is not necessarily going to be a one size fits all class, because some of you are going to be seed beaters, or you are a seed beater. Some of you are, your focus is wire work, wire weaving. Some of you, your focus is just stringing. Some of you, your focus is something completely different. So this is really just kind of a broad general overview of some of the essentials that you're going to need. But for those of you who do something that is more technique specific, I'm not going to necessarily be hitting on those things. So for instance, if you're a seed beater, things like the thread that you use for seed beating and needles and those kinds of things, I kind of left out, not intentionally, but just because I wanted to keep this as broad as possible, coming at this from the point of view of maybe you're just a beginner and you're building up your stash and you need to know all of the essentials. And then just building from there. Okay. All right. So before we get started, I'm going to turn you guys around so you don't have to look at my face the entire time. I'm going to show you these products, as many of them as I have. Some of them that are on the list, I don't necessarily have, but we are still going to talk about them. So let's get turned around and we will get started. All right. So when you are a beginner, okay, in particular, this is for beginners, like I said, when you're very first starting out, it's very overwhelming when you go to your Michaels and you go into the jewelry department and you're looking for things to buy. You may not know what it is that you need. And it's sometimes hard to differentiate between what is a need and what is just a want, right? So we're going to try to keep this as basic as we possibly can. And I'll definitely throw in some things that I think are extras that you might want to have. But again, just wanting to keep this as basic as possible. It can be overwhelming. There are so many different choices. And these are just some of my favorites. So we're going to get started with the tools. And some of my very, very favorite tools of all time are the Beadalon Sparkle Pliers. Now, before I start talking about all of the pros about these, I do want to mention that these are definitely geared towards people with smaller hands. If you need something that has a little bit more cushion, if you need something that has a little bit more substantial grip on it, these might not necessarily be for you. However, Beadalon has a great selection of tools at Michael's to choose from. And there's definitely going to be a set of pliers that is going to fit for you. So because I do have smaller hands, I have smaller fingers. I do like to have a handle that is small. And I also like to have as close to a precision tip as you can get without buying a specialty set of tools. And I find that the Sparkle Pliers, whether it's the round nose or the chain nose, have a really good tiny little tip on them that I use for a lot of things. We'll start with just the chain nose pliers. So our chain nose pliers come in two different kinds. Of course, this is probably true for most brands, but for Beadalon in particular, these you can get in just the standard chain nose pliers, and then you can get them in the bent chain nose pliers. Now, I've included both of these as an essential because I always have 2 pairs of pliers on hand. Having 2 pairs of pliers is the perfect way to open and close jump rings. It just makes life a whole lot easier. It gives you a better grip. Let's just take a jump ring, just since we're talking about it, right? We may as well. So you can, if you want to, take a jump ring and open it with your finger, like holding it with your chain nose pliers, and then opening it with your finger. However, I find that you just don't get a very good closure on it. Sometimes you can see this one, it doesn't have a good closure on it. So using 2 pairs of pliers, I find is essential for things like this, where you're twisting open a jump ring or you're closing a jump ring. Same is true with head pins and eye pins. If you need a little bit more control, 2 pairs of pliers is the way to go. So why do I like to have one of them a bent chain nose instead of buying 2 pairs of the just straight chain nose pliers, is because in other situations where I'm wire wrapping, for instance, let me grab a scrap piece of wire here. So if I am wire wrapping something, let's just kind of start out with a wrapped loop. So I'm not really doing a project. I'm just giving you some examples here. If I want to do, I'm going to just do really quickly, I'm going to do a wrapped loop here, and then I'm going to put a bead on, and I'll show you why those bent chain nose pliers come in handy. So the bent nose on those is really handy for when you have other things in the way. Now, I know that doesn't make a whole lot of sense until you see exactly what I'm talking about. And those of you who are jewelry makers, you know exactly what I mean. So you've got your pliers here. You've got your loop, whether it's an eye pin, a head pin, whatever the situation may be. And let's just say you've got this bead, you're going to do your wrapped loop with this, and then you're going to want to attach this to something else, right? Finish this off here. Let's say that we want to attach this to another loop on something else, okay? And we're going to do the wrapped loop, holding on to this one with the bent chain nose pliers, or the other one after you make that loop. See how I can hold the bead out of the way? I can hold the wire out of the way, right? Whatever is happening on this side of the pliers, the tip of those pliers is not getting in the way. So I find that this is particularly helpful, right? When you are working on something and you're working in a very small area, let's say, like you only have this much here, right? Okay, so it's really, really helpful because you're not trying to like wrap around. I'm sorry, I'm trying to keep up with the comments as they go by. That's why I kind of paused there for a second. That's going to be really, really helpful for keeping your pliers out of the way. And if you've got to have 2, it's good to have one of them to be at least your bent chain nose pliers. Okay. All right. So the other thing that you're going to want to have is your round nose pliers, which I've already kind of shown you. Your round nose pliers are perfect for creating wrapped loops and simple loops. You can make coils. You can make jump rings. However, it is a tapered, it's a tapered mandrel here. So your jump rings are not going to all be the same, but perfect for lots of different things. So if you're going to be a wire wrapper, even if you're not a wire wrapper and you're a stringer, having a good pair of round nose pliers on hand is definitely what I would consider an essential. So your essentials are going to be 2 pairs of pliers, chain nose, one of which being the bent chain nose, one of them being the round nose pliers. And then you're going to want a good pair of cutters. Now I realize the cutters that I have here have a purple handle. However, if you're buying the sparkle pliers and you're making this investment for your jewelry business, then definitely you want to include a good cutter, and you can get the semi-flush cutter in the blue handle as well. I just couldn't find mine, so I got the purple ones because they're exactly the same size. Having a good cutter is definitely always a must. This one is a semi-flush cutter, so you're not going to get a flush cut, but you are going to get a nice precision cut with this, and you can get in there. See how it has that tiny little tip? You're able to get in there and, you know, really get into some small places. All right, so another tool that I find to be an absolute essential is going to be your flat-nosed nylon jaw pliers. If you've taken classes with me before, you know that these are essential for making your knotted head pins. I cannot live without these. You've got to have these for that kind of technique in particular. However, these are also good for straightening wire. And if you are making things where you don't want to mark up the wire, you've got this nice nylon grip on these, and that's going to help to keep you from getting pliers marks on things. So if you're making spirals or any of those, you know, kind of fancy little things, using these to hold onto your wire is definitely going to help to keep you from scratching everything up. Okay. So the other standard tool that is definitely an essential for your jewelry making business is going to be your crimpers. Now, even if you are strictly a wire worker, or if you are strictly a seed beater, having a good pair of crimper tools is definitely an essential thing to have. I don't know if everybody knows this, but you should, particularly our beginners, this is definitely a plus to have, is a standard crimper tool so that you can crimp properly, right? Proper crimping technique is a must. That's going to make or break your jewelry designs. And in seed beading and in wire wrapping, sometimes there are opportunities or situations where you're going to need a crimper tool. And this is a really great one to invest in because it's cost effective, but it also accommodates a wide variety of crimp sizes. So with your standard crimper tool, you're going to be able to crimp sizes 1, 2, and 3. And that's pretty much the standard as far as crimp sizes are concerned. And we're going to get into those here in just a second as well. But it definitely helps you to take care of a lot of different sizes of your crimp beads and keeps you from having to buy multiple tools. There are other size crimp tools that are available. There's a micro crimper and a mighty crimper that does larger crimps. But I find that if you're just starting out and you're just building your jewelry business, this is definitely one that you're going to want to start with. The others necessarily will come into play later, depending on what kinds of projects you're doing. But just as an overall standard tool to have, this is definitely the one that I recommend. Now, let's talk about the crimps that are going to go with this, because you don't want to invest in a ton of different crimps, right? You don't want to spend a whole lot of money unnecessarily when you are just starting out. So, excuse me, I like to grab the Beadalon crimp variety packs. There's one of them that has 4 different colors. This is the crimp tubes, right? So this one's got 4 different colors. I'm actually missing the copper. So the crimp tubes or the crimp beads, you can get these in variety packs where there are 3 different kinds of metals. That is super cost effective, right? So you're not buying tons of crimps, tons of different sizes, trying to figure out, you know, what you're going to need. These are great for just getting started, right? You can buy all the colors that you need in just one fell swoop, and you can do that with the tubes or with the crimp beads. The tubes are my personal favorite just because they have a little bit more surface area to work with. So if you're just getting started, these are a great way to learn your proper crimping technique for sure. And having them in the little bottles, you can just throw these in your bag. So if you are doing a craft booth, if you are going to do a craft show somewhere, having these and having all your essential tools to be able to just kind of throw in your work bag, that's really, really going to be helpful, because things happen, right? If you're selling your jewelry, sometimes things break. We hope that they don't, but worst case scenario, something does break. You want to be sure that you've got everything you need. And these little containers like this are super handy to just kind of throw in your bag. Plus the fact that you've got them in all the colors of the metals that you need. So again, these come in the crimp tube or they come in the crimp bead, and you can just pick the preference. You can see I've kind of damaged the top of this one here. Just ignore that. But You can buy these all in, in one little package and you're good to go. Definitely a cost-effective way to buy your essential findings. And then of course, there's another great way to buy essential findings, and that's going to be with your findings variety packs. I talk about these all the time. If you've taken classes with me before, I love these. Again, it is a small, I can toss it in my bag. I can take it with me. I have everything I need. I've got tons of different sizes of jump rings. I've got all the clasps that I need. There are the spring rings and the lobster clasps, and there are a ton of them. There are a lot missing here because I use them for everything. But really a cost-effective way to buy a lot of findings at once. If you're just getting started building your jewelry business, you want to be as mindful of where you're spending your money as possible. And things like this and the variety packs for your crimps are definitely going to be essentials, so that you can spend your money on the fun things, which would be like your beads, right? I mean, that's where we all have the most fun. But unfortunately, these things are necessary. And so being able to do them in a cost-effective way is definitely going to save you money in the long run. All right. So there are other findings that I do find to be really necessary and things that I like to have on hand. I think all jewelry makers should have on hand. One of those things being the wire guardians. I find that these are a lifesaver. Some of you may not be familiar with the wire guardian and what it does, but your wire guardian is exactly what the name says. It is going to protect your wire between your bead stringing wire and any of the metal components that you're going to be using with your bead stringing wire. These are also great for seed beaters. If you are using wildfire and you're doing a beading design and you need to add hardware to it, you can also run your wildfire through this as well. So it has a little channel in it here, and that's going to be a barrier between your wire and your components. So whether that's a jump ring, whether it's a clasp, it's going to serve as the barrier. So what happens is you run your bead stringing wire up through it, and then grab a pair of pliers here. Back down through it, and your bead stringing wire is never going to touch your jump ring or your clasp or whatever component it is that you are looping it through. And that's going to keep that from creating any abrasion here. The abrasion happens when that bead stringing wire rubs up against something else, whether it's a bead, whether it's metal. Metal is the worst for creating abrasion. And that's going to cause your bead stringing wire to fray. It over time will wear away that nylon coating on the outside of your bead stringing wire, and that will cause a weak point in your design, which over time will completely break. So wire guardians, I definitely recommend if you're just getting started and you're beginning to build your jewelry business, I definitely recommend grabbing some of these and just having them on hand. Throw them in a little baggie, toss them in your bag, and take them with you wherever you're going to go, wherever you're going to be showing your pieces. Just to have on hand, definitely important. Now, the other two things I'm going to show you, these are kind of no-brainers, I feel like, but good things to have. Just in general, ear wires, that's always going to be something that you're going to need if you're making earrings, whether you are a seed beater, whether you're a stringer, whether you're a wire wrapper, whatever the case may be. Getting your ear wires and having those on hand is definitely an essential for sure. This just happens to be my favorite. I find that with customers in particular, they find these to be the most comfortable. They are the lever back or lever back, depending on how you say it, ear wires. They fit really, really nicely in the ear, and everything hangs from them beautifully. However, you can have your own preference, and Beadalon does offer a couple of different styles of ear wires that you can grab from Michael's. Definitely want to buy those up. They're inexpensive, and you can buy a lot of them and have those on hand for your designs, or if you're traveling and showing your jewelry, just to have these in case, right? You always want to have things just in case. All right, then last but not least, and I call this a finding. It might not necessarily fall in the finding category, but that would be some chain. And again, this is one of those things that does seem like a no-brainer, but those of you who are seed beaters, even those of you who are wire wrappers and stringers, you're going to need some chain at some point. This stuff is great to buy in bulk. You can get a lot of it all at once. This is the Beadalon chain. I like to buy the small chain just because I can use this for drops. I can use this for necklaces. I can use this to hang pendants on. There's so many different uses for this, and it's easy to work with. And a lot of times I don't even bother with opening and closing the little links on them. If I just need a small section, I'll just use my cutter tool and trim off whatever length that I need. And having this to throw in your bag, again, it's a really great essential to have. You can never have too much chain. So I tend to buy the small chains in bulk. And then when I'm looking for specialty chain, which is the larger link chain for specialty designs, I splurge on those, but I tend to always have small chain on hand. All right, now we're going to get down to the nitty gritty here. So all of the things we've talked about this far for building your jewelry business have been pretty, if you're a beginner, you might not know where to start. I've given you a good little jumping off point, but this is probably the number one thing that gets asked about more than anything, and that is wire and all of the different kinds of wires, what kind of wire you're going to need for your business in particular, and what the differences are between all of those and what's going to be the most cost effective. So we're going to start with the bead stringing wire, because not all wires are created equal, and different people are going to need different kinds of these wires for their different needs. But I do think that it's definitely good information, whether you are just getting started or you need a refresher. So bead stringing wire comes in 3 different strand sizes. You can get 19 strand, you can get 49 strand, or you can get 7 strand. And the strand number is a count of all of the little stainless steel wires. So you see this is 19 strand. That means that it's 19 strands of very tiny stainless steel wire that has been twisted together, and then it has this nylon coating on it. So the higher the number, the more drape and the more flexibility you're going to get out of that wire. So if you're a beginner, you're just starting out, you don't really know what you want or what you're going to need, the first number you're going to pay attention to is going to be the strand count. Now, that being said, I think there is a little bit of misinformation about what that strand count is going to mean for you and your jewelry making. So if you're a beginner, a lot of times, the 7 strand is what you'll go for, because you see that it is the most cost effective out of all of them. It is, you can buy a lot of it, whereas with the 49 strand, it's very expensive. The 19 strand kind of tends to be in the middle of the road. And that's true as far as the price point is concerned, but that does not necessarily indicate, let's see how to say it. It doesn't necessarily indicate your skill level. Okay. I find that the 7 strand is just appealing for those of you who are just getting started because of the price point, but that's not necessarily how you want to shop for this. So let me explain. 7 strand is the least flexible out of all of them. That doesn't mean that it is inferior by any stretch of the imagination. 19 strand has better flexibility. It's a little bit more supple. The 49 strand has the best flexibility. You can knot with this. It has the best drape. It really has more kind of a fluid feel to it. But I find that picking out which strand you want is not technique specific, but it's going to be project specific. Okay, so don't just go for the cheapest wire just because. Your 7 strand wire is going to be more, it's going to have more structure to it, right? So if you're making things like earrings like hoop earrings, or you're making some sort of pendant that is a hoop shape, and you want to use your bead stringing wire for it, then you're going to want that 7 because it has that nice structure to it, right? You want it to keep that shape. Whereas if you used your 49 strand, it might turn into more of a teardrop shape as opposed to that nice hoop shape that you're going for. Your 19 strand, this is probably the one that is the most, people buy it the most, just because it is the middle of the road. It kind of has the best of both the 7 and the 49 strand. depending on what kind of project you're doing. This is definitely going to be a good price point for everybody, and it's going to fill most of your needs. It's great for bracelets. It's great for earrings. It's great for necklaces and all of those little components that you want to make out of your bead stringing wire. So if you're making a lot of pieces of jewelry, if you're making lots of necklaces, if you find that you're making lots of bracelets for your business, 19 strand is really the way to go. I tend to buy it in the longest length that I can possibly get, just to save money in the long run. But now if you're looking for something in particular, you're going to be stringing maybe some of your favorite gemstones, and you want to have like a very luxurious feel. This is kind of the Rolls Royce, if you will, of bead stringing wire. This is what's considered professional grade. Do I consider 19 and 7 strand professional grade? I do, because again, I think that it is project specific. I don't think that those numbers indicate superiority of the wire at all. So though this may be considered professional, I really feel like it really kind of just depends. If you're looking for like the drape that you're going to get from maybe, you want your pearl necklace to feel like very luxurious, your 49 strand is definitely the way to go. 19 strand though, I feel like that's a great wire for everybody. Just in general. So let's talk a little bit about the information that is included here. So the two that I have on the list of the essentials is the bright, because of course your bead stringing wire is going to come in a lot of different colors as well. I tend to get the bright. It's a dark kind of silvery color. I find that it disappears in your designs and you don't necessarily see it. So I don't have to spend a lot of money buying bright silver or gold colored or bronze. This one is just kind of one of those, it's what I consider camouflage, and it really kind of just, you know, it blends in with everything. So that's definitely why I consider this one an essential. I find that this color works with just about everything. On the front of your packaging though, you're going to notice a couple of different things. You're going to notice, of course, the findings that fit that are going to go with your bead stringing wire. So it's going to tell you while you're shopping, again, this is a great way to save money and to save time, is you don't have to guess about what findings you're going to need. This is going to work with size 1 crimped beads and number 2 crimp tubes, the same with this one. And you can always look on the back to find what other things will work. So your scrimp findings, those are also going to be listed here on the back. It's going to tell you the sizes of all of the different diameters of the wire and what's going to work with it. Okay, so there's no guesswork there. You can buy everything that you need all together. Now, as far as essential sizes are concerned, this is where it can become even more than just the color of the bead stringing wire. This is where things can get a little overwhelming, particularly for those of you who are just getting started, okay? Because the bead stringing wires comes in a large variety of diameters, and you don't want to spend all of your money, right, from your business buying every single diameter of bead stringing wire that there is. You want to start out with something that's going to be right in the middle. The goal of your bead stringing wire is going to be, you want the largest amount of wire that's going to fill the largest hole of your bead. So of course, all designs are different, and some designs are going to have beads that have large holes and small holes all mixed together. What you want to find is a bead stringing wire that's going to accommodate all of those beads and is going to fill up the most amount of that bead opening, right? So why does that matter? It matters because just like where we were talking about the wire guardians and abrasion, the same abrasion can happen with your beads. So if you're using a very fine bead stringing wire in combination with a bead that has a larger hole, that bead is going to move around on that wire a whole lot more than it would on a thicker diameter wire. And of course, over time, it's going to wear away that nylon coating that's on the outside of the bead stringing wire, and then it's going to start to fray. So you want to be sure that you're buying a good size diameter for your wire. But unless you're going to be using things like gemstones that have a very tiny hole or pearls that have a very tiny hole, you're going to need to find something that's the midline for this, right? So I keep 2 different diameters on hand all the time. I always have bright, and I always have it in the 0.38 millimeter, and I always have it in the 0.46 millimeter. I find that one of the 2 of these diameters is going to more often than not going to be the correct size for whatever my project is, right? So one of them is a little bit smaller than the other. The differences in them is slight, but when you are using your beads, you're definitely going to be able to tell the difference. I don't know if I hold them side by side, you're necessarily going to be able to tell a whole lot. But I do find that these two diameters will accommodate most of my projects. And so having these two on hand is definitely going to save you a lot of money, right? You want to be spending your money in your jewelry business on the fun things, not 15 different diameters of wire. You can see the difference in the sizes is just very, very slight, right? You want to spend that money on, you want to spend that money on the beads. You want to spend that money on the fun things, the things that are going to draw your customers in, not on, you know, having every bead, stringing wire diameter that you could possibly find under the sun. Now there is a time and a place for that, right? Because sometimes you're going to need a specific diameter for a specific project. But if you're just starting your business, this is a great place to start, right? With your 0.38 and your 0.46. I really find that they accommodate most. Okay. So another thing that I like to have on hand that some people either love it or they hate it, that's going to be your elasticity. And I know that some people think that elasticity is inferior for whatever reason, but I got to tell you, over the past probably 5 or 6 years, I've noticed that there is an increase of high-end designer jewelry that is on elastic stretch of some variety. And my favorite out of all of the stretch is the elasticity. The stuff is inexpensive. You can buy a ton of it. It comes in 3 different sizes. And again, is something that you can just have on hand. Inevitably, you're going to come across a customer who has dexterity issues, who does not want to mess with findings, and elasticity is going to be the answer to that, right? You don't want to exclude any of your customers just because you don't have any kind of elastic cording on hand. So again, this comes in 3 different sizes. So just like with your bead stringing wire, it's going to accommodate a lot of different beads. The 1 millimeter is the one that I keep the most. Right? I have it the most on hand. It is the biggest out of all of them. It does fill up the whole of a lot of different sizes of beads. And again, you want to consider this the same way you do your bead stringing wire. You still want to fill up the bead stringing, the bead hole with the largest amount of the elasticity that will fit, right? Because abrasion happens whether it's bead stringing wire or elastic. It really doesn't make any difference. Those are all places where weaknesses can occur. So again, this is a great thing to have on hand for your customers who don't want to deal with a clasp. And I've got a lot of those. So you can get it in the 0.8 millimeter and the 0.5 millimeter. Comes in clear, comes in a couple of different colors. The clear is my favorite because it just disappears, right? It just disappears into the design. And again, it's just because it's stretched doesn't mean we've come a long way since kids jewelry, right? Remember when we used to make pony bead bracelets with stretch? Elasticity is definitely your grown-up version of your stretch cord. This stuff lasts forever, and it tells you on the back how to knot this up so that you're going to have a knot that's going to last, and your piece of jewelry is going to last as well. It's inexpensive. Throw it in your bag. Have it on hand. If you are showing your beads at a craft fair, if you're showing your bracelets, and a customer comes up and they've got one of those bracelets that's got a complicated clasp on it. You love that clasp so much, but the customer loves the bracelet more than the clasp. Offer, right? Have this in your bag and offer to take that and restring it for them on some of this elasticity. It is cost effective and definitely going to keep those customers happy for sure. All right. The next thing that we want to talk about is our thicker gauged, like not our bead stringing wires, but our wire wrapping wires. Okay. So my favorite wire, and those of you who have taken classes with me before, you know this about me. German style wire is where that's my love language with wire. German style wire. And I keep this in 4 different gauge. I have a ton of different gauges, but the ones that I keep on hand the most that I consider essentials are going to be your 18 gauge, your 20 gauge, your 22 gauge, and your 24 gauge. I find that these are the 4 sizes that I use the most. So I stock up on these. Now, I realize these are the great big huge packages of this. This is not what you're going to find in Michael's. You're going to be finding the blister packs. Let me find one for you here. I'll show you. So this is, when you're shopping for it, this is what you're going to be shopping for. I just happen to have these great big spools of it because that's how I use so much of it. But this is what it's going to look like when you're shopping for it. Now, there are 2 different kinds of, well, there's actually several different kinds of wire, but when you are a wire worker, probably the ones that you are going to hear about the most, right, is your German style wire and your artistic wire. And these 2 wires are very, very different. And depending on what your needs are, that's where you're going to want to spend your budget, right? Your jewelry business budget. You've got to allow for things like this, right? It's not all about the fun beads. And you're going to need to decide out of the 2, which one is the one that you're going to want the most, which one is going to be an essential for you. For me, German style wire is an essential, but for other people, the artistic wire is going to be the essential. But I do find that the sizes are probably going to be the same for everybody. Your 18 gauge is perfect for creating jump rings. It's good for creating components. It's good for, you know, lots of things where you need a little bit more structure. 18 gauge is the way to go. Your 20 gauge, this one is going to be good for whether it's the German style or whether it's the artistic wire. This is going to be good for your wrapped loops, your simple loops, things like that. So if you're doing a lot of wire wrapping, either one of these in the 20 gauge this is probably the most popular size in wire. If I had to guess, that's what this would be. For me personally, I prefer the 22 gauge. That's why I always have it on hand. So I find that you either fall into 2 different categories. You're a 20 gauge person or you're a 22 gauge person. Decide which one you're going to be using the most in your jewelry making and then stock up on that one. So for me, I have a ton of 22 gauge. I always have it. I have it in my bag. I take it with me to craft shows. I have it everywhere because it's the one that I use. The 20 is the one you use. You definitely want to stock up on it. The 24 gauge, this one's going to be perfect, whether it's artistic wire or if it is the German style wire. This is much thinner. This is going to be perfect for your smaller gemstones, not your smaller gemstones, but your gemstones that have a smaller hole, right? Just because it's still sturdy enough to do your wrapped loops and your simple loops, but you're going to need this one for things that have smaller holes, gemstones, pearls. Now, let's talk about the difference, okay? Because that's the number one question that I always get asked is what's the difference between the German style wire and the artistic wire, okay? So let's talk about that just a little bit. So our German style wire is a medium temper wire. This means that it has a little bit stronger structure to it, okay? Whereas your artistic wire is considered a dead soft wire. It's very, very flexible. It's very, very bendable. It's a step up from aluminum wire. If you've ever used aluminum wire for anything, you know that aluminum wire is very bendy. It's flexible. You can make all kinds of fun shapes with it. But it doesn't necessarily hold that shape depending on the situation. So your next step up from that is going to be your artistic wires. Your artistic wires come in a ton of different colors. They come in a ton of different sizes. And it's a great step up again from your, what you would call your craft wires, okay? People use this for a lot of wire weaving, a lot of wire working, and I find that people who've been doing wire working for years and years, they prefer the artistic wire over the German style wire. I don't happen to be one of those people, but you can do almost everything that you can do with your German style wire, you can do with your artistic wire. It can be work hardened. It can be treated basically the same way your German style wire is, just without that temper. So it's really going to kind of be up to you. I do recommend grabbing these little packs like this so you can try them out. If you've never, felt the difference between the two, I definitely would try one of each and see which one you think is going to be the best for you to kind of stock up on. German style wire with that medium temper, this stuff, because it is a little bit more sturdy, is perfect for wire wrapping. In fact, that's what German style wire was created for. It's perfect for your wrapped loops. It's perfect for wire weaving. It's nice and strong. It work hardens beautifully, particularly when you're going all the way up to your 18 gauge. If you work harden an 18 gauge German style wire, you've got a really dependable component, or jump ring, or whatever the case may be. This stuff, I find that for beginners in particular, if you have trouble with your wrapped loops, or you have trouble with your simple loops, sometimes the difference is in the wire. So if you're having trouble and you're using artistic wire to make your wrapped loops and they never seem to come out right, try your German style wire, because you may see that this makes all the difference in the world. The difference in the feeling of them is slight, but when it comes to the techniques and the ways that you're going to use it, you will be able to tell a difference, right? But you may not find that you need both of these on hand, right? You're building your jewelry business. You're trying to save your pennies. You're trying to use your budget wisely. You're going to want to decide what kind of wire are you going to be needing? What is the situation? Are you using your wire as accent? You want it in lots of colors. Or are you really focusing on wire wrapping and wire weaving? That's where your German style wire is going to come into play, right? All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here for sure. I just want to hit on a couple of extras that I find are definitely worth spending the money on. One of those things is my GS Hypo Cement. Now, I know it's glue. Why would I consider this a jewelry business essential? Well, there's a lot of reasons. I used to be anti-glue. Can you believe that was a thing for me for a really long time? I used to be anti-glue. I felt like if you needed to use glue in your jewelry designs, you were cheating, right? I felt like, what? You don't need glue. But I have since seen the error in my ways. And the Hypo Cement is one of my very, very favorite glues to use. It has that pinpoint precision tip on it. And it is perfect for any little emergency. Mine's kind of dirty, but you can see it's got that little precision tip on it. If you're a seed beater, if you're a wire worker, if you are a stringer, you've got to have some glue. Okay. Inevitably, you're going to have a situation where you're going to need some glue for something. And this is definitely the one that I recommend. Grab it, throw it in your bag, take it to your craft booth with you. You never know when the need is going to arise. It's perfect for knots. If you're knotting your elasticity, if you are knotting silk cord, if you are knotting leather, this stuff is going to work for everything. It even works on metal. So a really great thing to definitely splurge on. I don't know that I would consider it a splurge, because I do think that it does fall in the category of essentials, but buy one of these, throw it in your bag, make sure that you're taking this with you wherever you're going with your jewelry. Okay. And the last but not least thing is going to be your beading mats. I know that also kind of seems like a no-brainer, but believe me, for those of you who are just starting out and you're working on a shiny flat surface, or you're working on just your table and you've dumped out your beads here, you've got your seed beads on here and they are rolling all over the place, you're going to wish that you had invested in a bead mat. And fortunately for us, Beadalon's bead mats are very affordable. You can buy several of them at a time. Michael's has a great selection of them. Just grab them, throw them in your bag. Keep them on your table. It's going to save you a lot of headaches. You're definitely not going to be using your sentence enhancers for your projects, because your beads are not going to be rolling all over the place. Again, I know that seems kind of like a no-brainer, but you would be surprised at the number of people who get started with their jewelry making business and don't have a bead mat. So grab some of these. Consider this an essential for sure. Even with your glue, even with your bead string and wire, grab yourself a bead mat. Get 3 of them in a pack and just have them. All right. All right, guys, I'm going to turn you around just so that we can just kind of recap here. I do want to address a couple of things that I saw as the comments were going by, and then I'll let you guys go for the day. So I saw at the beginning, a couple of people were like, I don't understand. This is supposed to be your jewelry business essentials. Well, here's the thing. So I previously did a class about building your jewelry business and like how to set up your booth and things like that, how to build your website and all of those things. So if you are looking for that kind of information, definitely go back to the Michael's YouTube channel and check that one out, because it was another great class that we did that was very informative and definitely goes hand in hand with today's class. The reason why I consider these things to be jewelry business essentials is because you're building your business on these things. These are essentials. Are they the same things as your packing supplies or your stickers or your shipping products, you know, your bubble mailers? Not necessarily, but your business has to start somewhere. Your business has to start with your basics. It has to start with your tools. It's got to start with you spending your money in the right places. And that's what this was all about. So you kind of need to decide, you know, where are you going to budget? Are you going to budget into a really good set of tools now, or are you going to buy kind of the most cost-effective tools and then invest in tools later? So those kinds of choices, that all is where your jewelry business is going to begin. And then having things on hand, like your glue, having things like your crimp tubes in your little containers that you can have with you in all of the different metal colors. Those are definitely essentials for your business, because you're inevitably going to come into a situation where you're going to need those right then and there. And of course, those are things that you're going to use every single day in your designs. So you gotta think about your jewelry business essentials starting from the ground up, right? And for those of you who've already got your jewelry business going or your hobby going, this is still just a really great, you know, a broad kind of look and overview of things that I feel like spending your jewelry budget on are these are definitely your necessities. So I hope that I have helped you. I hope that I've given some of you who are just getting started a good place to start and given you some information about the products that are available and the ones that maybe you should choose over others. You definitely want to do your research. Don't go into your Michael's and go to the jewelry section and think that you've got to have one of everything. You really don't. There are some certain things like these essentials that you're going to need to have to get started before you decide whether it is you're going to be a seed beater or whether you're going to be a wire wrapper or where you are going to fall in the jewelry making world. These are things that I definitely think are going to be the stepping stones to taking you to the next level. So I appreciate everybody coming and hanging out with me today. I hope that I have given you some information, some food for thought. Please, if you've got other questions, don't hesitate to reach out, and be sure that you check out the other class that I did about your jewelry business, because again, these two classes I think go hand in hand and definitely have, both of them have very different knowledge and information, but things that you may need and find practical in your jewelry business or your jewelry hobby, right? All right, guys, thank you so much. Again, I appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you guys again soon with another fun class. Thank you, Michaels, and thanks to all of you. Bye, guys.